How in the heck do you get that much protein? And the answer is I snort protein powder. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Mindy, and I have lost over 120 pounds on Wegovy, Mounjaro, semaglutide compound, and I am now back on Wegovy again. And if you watch any health or fitness related content these days, you can't go 5 seconds without being slapped in the face with somebody talking about protein. So today, I want to talk about high protein diets. Are they just the new diet industry fad, or is there actually any science behind using a high protein diet for weight loss? If that sounds interesting to you, please give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't already, grab yourself a steak to gnaw on, and let's get into it. First, I want to get into the science of high protein diets. I'm a big fan of facts. Anecdotes and stories are great and all, but I really love me some clinical trial data that I can sink my teeth into. So when I wanted to get into the heart of protein diets and what makes them so great for weight loss, I started digging into some trials, and this is the gist of what I found. Firstly, protein increases satiety and decreases appetite. Our appetite and satiety hormones generally fall into two categories. And please excuse the mispronunciation of these terms because big words are hard. There's anorexigenic and orexigenic hormones. And anorexigenic hormones, things like leptin, PYY, CCK, and yes, even our friend GLP-1, which is found in Wegovy, Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Zepbound, reduce appetite and increase satiety by affecting your central nervous system and neurotransmitters to create a feeling of fullness and reducing your desire to eat, which is, we know, pretty much how a GLP-1 works, because GLP-1 is an anorexigenic hormone. Like, it's getting easier. I'm getting better. Orexigenic hormones like ghrelin, neuropeptide Y, and orexin do the opposite. They increase your appetite and increase your desire to eat. High protein diets have actually been shown to increase anorexigenic hormones and decrease orexigenic hormones. That increases satiety signaling and eventually leads to reduced food intake, resulting in weight loss. Basically, protein works as a natural Wegovy without the $1,600 price tag and having to deal with your insurance pre-approval process. The next thing that I found out is that protein actually burns more calories. Metabolism is usually a pretty sore subject for obese people. Unfortunately, there is a lot of misinformation about metabolism out there, mostly propagated by the fitness and diet industry as a way to try and scare you into buying the next big diet or supplement or whatever it is out there. Metabolism is largely determined by your genetics. We are either gifted with a fast metabolism or a slow metabolism from birth. I would like to return this gift, please. It can also be affected by other health issues like PCOS, thyroid issues, things like that. Our metabolism also naturally slows as we age, which is why it is much harder to lose weight in your 40s than it was in your 20s. And it also can adjust itself in times of extended caloric deprivation as a survival mechanism, but that effect is largely over-exaggerated, as I found in some more recent research. I've talked about metabolism and how our metabolisms are compromised before, but I thought I would kind of revisit it again. Our metabolisms, or TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, are divided up into 4 parts. There's BMR, or basal metabolic rate. It's also called RMR, or resting metabolic rate, and that makes up 70% of our total daily energy expenditure. This is the part that we're born with. It's how much energy our body burns just existing, running our circulatory system, breathing. Like, if we were to just lay in a bed all day and never move, that's our basal metabolic rate. Then we have EAT, EAT, which stands for exercise activity thermogenesis, which only makes up 5% of our total daily energy expenditure. Cardio and weight training, intentional exercise, time you spend in the gym. That's why the importance of exercise for weight loss is so grossly over-exaggerated, because again, it only makes up 5% of your total daily energy expenditure. Unless you're the kind of person that's spending 4 hours a day in the gym. That's not me. Next, we have NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which makes up 15% of our total daily energy expenditure. This is all of the movement and activity that we do during the day that's not exercise. So not time spent in the gym. So the time we spend walking from our house to our car, or from our car to the shop, or walking around at work. It's not exercise, but it is activity, and it does contribute to our total daily energy expenditure or our metabolism. The last part of our metabolism is one that most people don't think about. It's called TEF or TEF, which stands for the thermic effect of food, which makes up another 10% of our total daily energy expenditure. These percentages are all averages, by the way. Obviously, for some people, it's slightly more or slightly less, depending on how much exercise they do, the kind of food they eat, all that good stuff. The thermic effect of food basically is the calories that our body burns converting the food that we eat into fuel. Fat is the highest calorie macronutrient at 9 calories per gram of fat. It's over twice the number of calories per gram as carbohydrates and protein. Even though it's the highest calorie, it's the easiest for our body to digest. So it only takes 0 to 3% of our total daily energy expenditure to digest fat, even though it has way more calories than carbohydrates and protein. Fat is good for you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not demonizing fat. We don't demonize food around here at all. It is the quickest to convert to fuel, and it takes the least amount of energy for your body to do that. Carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, and they have a thermic effect of 5 to 10%, more than double the thermic effect of fat. Then we have protein. Protein is also 4 calories per gram, but it has a thermic effect of food of 20 to 30% of energy expenditure. So you're taking your thermic effect of food and you're tripling it from what the average is by just eating more protein. So that means that a high protein diet directly results in an increase in your metabolism because our bodies have to work a lot harder to digest and process them for our bodies to use them as fuel. That also means that you stay full longer because the increased oxygen demand that's required to metabolize protein effectively increases your satiety, which, fun fact, that's why people living at higher altitudes where oxygen pressure is low are generally thinner. Pretty cool, I thought. The next thing that a high protein diet does is it reduces fat, it preserves muscle, and it reduces the likelihood of post-weight loss regain. That's a lot. Let's get into why. Many clinical trials have shown high protein diets induce weight loss and improve body composition regardless of total energy intake. So even if people aren't in a calorie deficit, they noticed that people would lose fat mass or body fat, and they would increase fat-free mass or muscle mass. That's why over the last year and a half or so, since I've started really concentrating on getting high amounts of protein in my diet, even though my weight hasn't changed very much, there have been massive changes in the appearance of my body composition. I feel like there's been a bigger change in the way my body looks over the last 20 pounds or so than there was over the 40 to 50 pounds that preceded it. Energy restricted diets, what these trials called significantly reducing caloric intake, like as low as 600 calories a day, which is not healthy for you, either through intermittent fasting or just eating very small quantities of food throughout the day, or very, very low calorie foods without focusing on protein intake. That results in weight loss, but it increases the risk of post-loss weight regain because people generally can't keep up that low of a calorie consumption over an extended period of time. That's that sustainability piece that we talk about. And it results in the loss of both fat and muscle. So because a high protein diet helps to prevent lean mass loss, and lean mass burns more calories at rest than fat does, a high protein diet can have a direct effect on your basal metabolic rate as well. Because again, that basal metabolic rate, or 70% of your daily energy expenditure, is all based on what your body burns without doing anything. Short and simple, high protein diet equals more muscle mass equals faster metabolism equals easier to maintain your weight loss in the long run. Basic trial conclusions: high protein diets induce weight loss, lower cardiovascular disease risk factors such as blood triglycerides and blood pressure, while preserving muscle mass. There is no evidence that high protein diets are harmful to bones or kidneys in healthy adults. And that's one that a lot of people will say, like, oh, it's bad for your kidneys. They've disproven that in healthy adults. Obviously, this is all with healthy adults, right? So if you have kidney issues, talk to your doctor. It increases satiety and energy expenditure, which can result in weight loss. It increases hepatic gluconeogenesis and ketogenesis. If you're not familiar with those, There are lots of videos on YouTube that will do a much better job of explaining to you what those are than I will. High protein diets are also thought to prevent metabolic syndrome, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. So ultimately, high protein diet, there is definitely science behind using that as a tool for weight loss. And I know anecdotally, I definitely have noticed a huge difference in my body composition and the way that my body has held on to muscle mass and let go of fat mass since I've started eating a high protein diet. If you're interested in the trial data that I looked at for this video, I will definitely have it linked down in the description below if you're the kind of person that likes to look at that stuff for yourself. So I didn't want to just leave you with all this information about how amazing a high protein diet is without giving you some ideas on how to actually implement it. I have a ton of videos on this channel about how I eat high protein, lots of recipe ideas and meal ideas and things like that. But just as an overview, a big question that I get from people often is like, how much protein constitutes a high protein diet? And the recommended dietary protein allowance to avoid protein deficiency in adults is about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, or about 10 to 15% of your total daily energy expenditure. The high protein diet groups for the studies that I was referencing were between 27 and 35% of total calorie intake. I try to get at least 30% of my daily calories from protein sources, which for me is right now about 124 grams of protein per day for 1,650 calories. I'm in a deficit right now, and that's what that looks like for me. The next question logically is, well, how do you get that much protein? Like 124 grams is a lot. When I'm in maintenance, I'm eating like 150 to 160 grams of protein a day. How in the heck do you get that much protein? And the answer is, I snort protein powder. I'm just kidding. That's not what I do. I do my best to get most of my protein from whole food sources, and there are very easy swaps for high protein meals all over the place. Again, that's one of the benefits of this being like the next thing in the fitness industry right now, is that there are sources all over the place to find good high protein swaps for things and recipes. But mostly I just prioritize protein at every meal. For breakfast, for example, before I started focusing on protein, my favorite breakfast that I've eaten throughout my entire journey was 2 large eggs, 2 chicken maple sausage links, 6 little tater tot things, and some fruit, which was around 22 grams of protein, which was pretty good, but it was still more carb heavy than protein heavy. When I started focusing on getting more protein, I experimented with protein coffee and all sorts of things. But several months ago, a subscriber suggested that I try Oikos 000 vanilla yogurt because I could not find a sweet Greek yogurt that I liked. Like, they were all just way too sour for me. Oikos is a blended Greek yogurt, so it's part Greek yogurt, part regular yogurt, and it's slightly lower in protein than regular Greek yogurt, but it is so delicious. I can't even tell you. I have been absolutely hooked on it ever since. So if you hate vanilla Greek yogurt or sweet Greek yogurt, or you can't find one that you like, to give it a shot. It is so good. Adding just 115 grams of that yogurt to my breakfast, which is not very much. It's like, I think less than a quarter of a cup, with a bit less fruit, gives me an additional 12 grams of protein to my breakfast. So now my 22 gram protein breakfast is now 34 grams of protein for breakfast, and it's like around 33% protein for the whole meal. And starting off your day with a good amount of protein means it's going to keep you full for way longer, especially with the fiber from the fruit. Like, those two things will keep me full for hours and hours. Obviously, the Wegovy helps with that too, but even if you're not on a GLP med, having fiber and protein at a meal will definitely keep you full for a longer period of time. The next thing is snacks. I'm not much of a snacky person because I just, to be honest with you, don't really get very hungry in between meals. But every once in a while, I have a long period of time generally between when I eat breakfast and when I eat lunch. So sometimes I'll need just something little to kind of get me through to my next meal. And it's easy to crave carbs or fats like nuts for snacks, but they really aren't very filling. On those odd times where I'm wanting something small to kind of keep me through, that's when I'll usually grab like a protein bar. My favorite protein bars are the Built Puff bars. They're basically chocolate covered protein marshmallow candy bars that are loaded with collagen. The macros on them are actually good. I think my favorite ones are like the cookie dough chunk puff and the coconut brownie chunk puff. Those ones are a little higher calorie. They have 160 calories instead of like 130 calories, which are some of the smaller ones, but they've got like 16 to 18 grams of protein in them. So they're actually high protein bar, as opposed to most, which are just loaded with a ton of sugar, and they've got like 10 or 12 grams of protein. Sometimes if I'm really feeling like I want like a decadent treat, I'll pop them in the microwave for about 10 to 15 seconds on top of a graham cracker. And they're like the most insane protein s'more you've ever had in your whole life. I am an affiliate with Built because I love them so much, and I sought them out so that I could give you guys a 10% discount. I always have that code and link down in the description of my videos. So if you've never tried them and you're interested in giving them a try, I can't recommend them highly enough. If you're somebody that's tried Built Puff Bars and you love them, or you don't love them, definitely let us know down in the comments. I am not a huge fan of the Built bars, like their regular protein bars. They are extremely chewy, and it's just, the texture is not my favorite. They're kind of like those date protein bars, but they don't have dates in them. So it's just, they're very protein tasting and very chewy, and I don't love them. But their puffs are chef's kiss, delicious. Love them, love them, love them. So snacks are usually where I'll do like a protein bar or something like that, just because it's easy. Or the Fairlife Nutrition Chocolate Shakes. They're 150 calories, 30 grams of protein, tastes like chocolate milk. Delicious. For lunches and dinners, generally I will eat dinner leftovers for lunches. I am a meticulous meal planner. I definitely suffer from decision fatigue. So if I don't have my meals planned going into the week, it's a recipe for disaster for me. I'm just going to probably end up making an excuse to go out to eat. And restaurant food is a lot higher calorie and a lot harder to get a higher amount of protein in. They like to load their meals with carbs and fats because they're delicious. There are a ton of creators out there making great high protein content for free. I always have a list of some of my favorites down in the description below my videos, so definitely check those out. Most of them are on Instagram. It's no secret at this point, if you've ever watched this channel, I practically live off of macro-friendly food recipes. Macro-friendly food is a subscription recipe service. I pay about $10 a month for it. She has over 900 high protein, low calorie, more comfort food leaning recipes. And I'm the kind of person, like, I don't restrict any food. Like, I don't believe in good food and bad food. As somebody with a food addiction and, borderline binge eating disorder, if I restrict foods, it's a recipe for disaster for me. So I allow myself to eat whatever I want in moderation. I do my best to eat vegetables or fruits at every meal, and I try to make sure that I'm concentrating on getting good quality food, but I don't restrict anything. I eat pasta, I eat nachos, I eat whatever sounds good to me. And the awesome part about macro-friendly food is that she takes those kinds of foods and she fits them into a more balanced macro profile, so much higher protein and more balanced carbs and fat. I am also an affiliate with Macro-Friendly Food, so there is a 10% discount code down in the description at all times. If you don't want to pay for a recipe subscription service or you can't afford to, I totally understand that. You can also just go into Pinterest and type high protein chicken recipe or high protein pork recipe or high protein whatever meat recipe ingredient here, or tofu recipe, or vegan recipe, or whatever. The reason I like macro-friendly food is because sometimes you'll do that and a recipe will be labeled high protein, but then you get into it and it's either very high calorie or it's not really high protein. Like it's got protein in it, but it's not 30% or more of the calories. It is definitely possible to do this without macro-friendly food. I did it for over a year myself. It just makes my life so much easier, and it's worth it to me to save the time. Now, if you're one of those people that finds meal planning overwhelming and you just want someone to help you and give you some inspiration for what to cook throughout the week, I do send out weekly meal plans for free to my members on Buy Me a Coffee. I'm sorry if this sounds like a giant commercial. I just want to offer you guys as many resources as I can. These are the things that have helped me kind of get through, and if they'll help you too, then I just want you to have the opportunity to know that it's out there. So for dessert, yes, you can still eat dessert and lose weight. I've been doing it for 2.5 years, and I know that if I don't plan for something sweet, because I'm someone that has a sweet tooth, that I will just end up eating something that's not good for me. I have found lots of resources for making high protein desserts. CheatDayDesign.com makes some of the best protein baked goods that I have ever tried. I cannot recommend his site strongly enough. All of his recipes are free on his site. I've made his jelly stuffed peanut butter cookies. I've made his brownie cookies. His microwave mug cakes are one of my absolute favorites with like protein chocolate frosting. Oh, so good. Love his recipes. They're fantastic. I also love my protein fluff. That recipe is always in the description to my videos. It has a cult following at this point, and it's not like I'm the first person to ever invent that concept. I just found the balance of ingredients that worked the best for me, like to have the flavor profile that I like. So if you're interested in giving that a try, it's like a cottage cheese, fruit, whipped cream, delicious explosion of happiness. But this week I'm doing a super simple, like simple was the name of the game this week because it's my first week going back into a deficit. I did a protein pudding that is literally 2 ingredients and it comes together in less than 5 minutes. You just take 2 Fairlife Nutrition chocolate protein shakes and you add a box of instant chocolate pudding. The instant pudding says to use 3 cups of liquid. So I poured 2 of the protein shakes into a measuring cup and then I filled it up with milk until it got to the 3 cup line. And then I beat in the instant sugar-free chocolate pudding mix and I let that sit for a couple of hours in the fridge, and it is like thick, and it's a lot. Like you probably could add more milk to it because it was real thick. And then I just topped mine with an ounce of reduced fat Cool Whip, and then you can top it with whatever you want. I did a little bit of Cocoa Puff Minis, strawberries. I've had nights this week where I've just eaten it with the Cool Whip and I mixed it up and it's like super light and fluffy, and honestly you don't even really taste the protein at all. Like it just tastes like chocolate pudding and it is delicious. I just want to say that while I have adapted really easily to a high protein diet and I love it and it works great for me, ultimately the only diet that is going to work for you is the one that you're going to stick to. So yes, there's science behind high protein for weight loss, but if you find it too tedious and you don't enjoy eating that much protein, then it doesn't matter how good it is for you. If you're not going to stick to it, it's not the right thing to do. So if the idea of eating 30% of your calories from protein is daunting to you, maybe start with just 20%, because that's quite a bit more than most people get right there. And then maybe once you get used to 20%, increase it to 25. There's nothing that says that you have to go from 0 to 500 overnight. You have your entire life to figure this out, guys. I'm a huge fan of making small, sustainable changes. Don't try to overhaul your whole life in one day. You could even start smaller than that. Maybe start by substituting high protein milk for regular milk. Try using Fairlife or Moutopia, which are the ultra filtered milks that have no lactose, lower sugar, and much higher protein. Maybe add a protein shake to your breakfast or a protein coffee to your breakfast. Ultimately, I want to make sure you guys understand that I'm not telling you you have to use a high protein diet to lose weight. It's just what works for me, and now you know the science behind it. I hope you guys found this video useful or informative. If you did, please give it a like. Let me know down in the comments what you've done to help make protein a priority in your diet. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.
We're on a journey, looking back on the things that we've taken for granted, but feels like we're learning to be better.